And by writing, I asked the girl up there for Mr. Lindsay to call me, and he never called me. And
Okay.
nothing was done
Okay.
only 2 months later.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, we have your information, and Frank, if you will give this to Public Works.
Yes.
And have them contact you, and then make arrangements to come over when you're there, and you can see and tell them just exactly what you want done, and let us take care of it.
Well, last week I could not wait anymore. My pool guy didn't want to walk on the side of my house because he was worried that maybe one of the branch will hit, his high or whatever. So I have somebody to do it. So I already paid for it, but I wish that in the future that hedge will be taking better care. And matter of fact, it should be redone right now. If not, it'll overgrown again and come on my side of the property.
Okay.
Okay,
It's cut too high. It should be cut not lower than the block wall.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay?
all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
And
bringing that to our attention.
Is there a vote pretty soon on the tax that you want to charge us?
No. No. No, you're safe for another year.
Yeah, well, if you're not that successful on the last election, is because of the landscaping. I just want to let you know that. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak to the council?
Go on. Daria.
Okay, yeah, okay. Okay. All right, we'll move on to our closed session. We have one this evening, and that's conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 for property located at Dune Palms Road and Highway 111. City negotiator, city manager, negotiating party, Martin Dolomo, under negotiation, potential terms and conditions of acquisition or disposition of property. At this time, I'll recess the council to close session, and we will reconvene at 4 p.m. Time, I'll reconvene the City Council meeting of November 18th, 2014. At this time, I'd ask that you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your hand over your heart and repeat with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on an item which is on the agenda, I'd ask that you please fill out a request to speak form. It's an orange form like this. It's in the back of the room, and give it to our city clerk. At this time, anybody wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. I do have 2 requests to speak, so if you would, when I call your name, come up to the dais, and if you could keep it to 3 minutes, give us your name and address, we'd appreciate it. Harry Schaffner.
My name is Harry Schaffner. I live at 50195 Granada Court. That is in the Haciendas of La Quinta. I have lived there and been a permanent resident for 12 years. I am a retired lawyer from the Midwest. I first came to La Quinta as a Marine, visiting the resort in 1967. My house suffered $60,000 worth of damage. My house has also a diminished property value. We have 17 homes where I live that have suffered damages of $40,000 or more, and all of the houses where I live have a diminished property value. The photographs that are being passed among you are not photographs of the storm of this year, and they're not photographs of the storm of last year at 50th and Eisenhower. The back of those photographs state when they were taken, November of 2004, 10 years ago. I believe that when the city did not authorize financially the engineering request that was made by the city engineer last year and maybe longer, that the city had a duty to warn us so that we could get flood insurance. I did not have flood insurance. Had I known that there was this problem and there was a recommendation by the city engineer, I would have obtained flood insurance. I wouldn't have suffered what I have suffered. Secondly, I think you need to have a public airing. I think people need to come forward. I'm sure it's difficult for all of you to listen to us, but I think there needs to be a venue where people can come forward and speak from their heart. This is very difficult. When it's your home, it hits you in a place that's unlike any other place, and so I ask you for that. Next, I would remind you of something, and that is the photographs that you're looking at are photographs of one flooding in the intersection of 50th and Eisenhower. Including the one this year, there have been 4 others. 2 things occurred since those photographs were taken. One is that the bridge over the cart path in the wash was enlarged to make it a 4-lane bridge from a 2-lane bridge. And secondly, it was much higher. Third, there's a wall that runs on the west edge of the haciendas of La Quinta that goes from the bridge to 50th Street. That wall acted as a funnel, funneling water into the intersection. So even though the bridge was approved, there was no change in the engineering for the intersection. The intersection gets much more water than it did when we had the 2-lane bridge, because I'm a bike rider, so I ride up that bridge all the time. The 2-lane bridge had some room for water to go off into the wash. The current bridge, the 4-lane bridge, doesn't. I ask that you, I received today from a board member of my HOA an amazing memo, which is dated October 7th, 2014. I commend all of you for it. It is an incredibly aggressive address of the engineering issues. This should be public. Instead of the city saying this is a 100-year, a 700-year storm, and that we're not responsible, I think the city should be reaching out to its residents. I think there has to be some commonality between us. We're not your enemy, and you're not our enemy. You are our government, and we've elected you. And therefore, I ask that you reach out to us, give us an opportunity to be heard, and continue aggressively addressing the problem which affects the home values of millions and millions of dollars of homes in a community that I dearly love. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alan Worthy.
Well, thank you for having me, and good afternoon, and congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all your long service. I know everyone's grateful to you. I don't know, this doesn't sound like it's on. Is it on?
Yes.
Is it
Give us
on?
your name and address for the record.
Oh, okay, I hear it now, I think. Thomas, I go by Alan, my mother's maiden name, Worthy, and I am homeless, thanks to the malfeasance and egregious behavior on the city of Palm Springs, which I'll address in a moment, and the pending lawsuit against a certain hospital in Rancho Mirage. I'm not breaching it, it's public record. I know that after my meeting with my attorney today and signing documents for this, I know that it'll settle soon. So my condo is locked up in the self-same fraud. So my loan is in second position and shows performing, so they cannot foreclose on it when typically they could, or whoever they is could be they, and they cannot. So my home is waiting for me and my 3 dogs. So I want to say thank you, Ms. Evans, because when I went to JFK, I try not to get upset every time I'm here. I'm very grateful. You know, coming from my background, the whole aftermath has been so shocking and horrible. And when I was taken to JFK, those people there were so kind, and the morale there could not be higher. They're just superb, really. And again, from my background, I can't thank you enough. You have a lot to be proud of. And in this day and age, we need it. And I'm sorry to be so emotional every time. But Mr. City Manager, could you please speak with Mr. Reddy on my behalf? The situation, I said, has come this far east. There's just not enough law and order in Palm Springs, and surely Mr. Reddy is the last man standing. I cannot recall, I've spent the summer on Venice Beach being homeless. I hope you have another comment during your housing. That was an absolute nightmare. 2 blocks from a church, thank God. But I have to tell you, I've called the White House. This isn't even what I planned to tell you. So many wonderful things to talk about. I called the White House more than once and said, tell the president, and he does know who I am because I work for Senator Boxer, to not come back to LA unless he drives his motorcade down Venice Boardwalk. It's an absolute nightmare. There is a pending lawsuit with a community group there against the city of LA for the third world conditions. I see the yellow lights on already. I'd like to say quickly what Mrs. Eddy has to say about upholding the rule of law. Those who discern Christian Science will hold crime in check. They will aid in the ejection of error. They will maintain law and order and cheerfully await the certainty of ultimate perfection. So God bless all of you. And I am asking, again, I cannot keep up. I'm again asking Mr. Doug Holland to resign, Palm Springs City Attorney, if you would call. And for that, back me up. He's not telling the truth to the Desert Sun on September the 15th. Let me just say, if you look, I can say that, if I have another moment, I can say that because my brother looked up the article online, and online the 2 officers and the sergeant are named, and one of those parties, I won't say which one, has made a career, among 2 other ones, of harassing me for doing what? Reporting crime. So Mr. Holland is not telling the truth, and we cannot tolerate lawlessness. So, as confirmed by far too many people. And so, I thank you for allowing me to exercise the First Amendment.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Anyone else wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, then we'll move on to confirmation of agenda. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions by staff? No. By council members?
On the consent calendar, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item number 3 for a separate vote only.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to announcements, presentations, written communications. We have a presentation on public health concerned Ebola. Sarah Mack, Deputy Director of Riverside County Department of Public Health.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Again, my name is Sarah Mack. I am the Deputy Director at the Department of Public Health. And Mayor Adolph, City Council members, staff, I thank you for the invitation to come today and talk to you about the preparedness for Ebola activities here in Riverside County. We commend the City Councils because you are one of our many partners, and we want to make sure that we are continuing to communicate with you and all our partners about the readiness for Riverside County. Let me start out. First of all, good afternoon, and what a beautiful day. Clouds are coming out, getting a little cold, but it's gorgeous. I heard that. It's cold.
It's cold. Did you bring a pair of gloves with you?
Oh, it was colder, I think, on the west side today. I'm not sure. Anyways, let me please start out. First and foremost, there are no cases of Ebola in Riverside County. There are no cases of Ebola in California. I do want to start that because, again, with the events that have been going on in West Africa, in Texas, in New York, most recently now in Nebraska, there has been a great deal of public concern, heightened anxiety, awareness, and quite frankly, we understand that and hence want the opportunity to talk to you. With that, The public concern, I'm also going to say, over the last couple weeks, seems to possibly be waning a little bit, but our preparedness activities are not. So again, I'm going to reiterate again at this point and at the end that there are no cases, no suspect cases in Riverside County. But what we do, what public health does, is we prepare. We prepare for acts of bioterrorism. We've been preparing since 2000, 9/11, 2001, too. We have been preparing for outbreaks and epidemics. We have had influenza epidemics. We've had H1N1. And we work with our medical partners to communicate about our preparedness activities. We have been working with who are our healthcare providers? Our healthcare providers are hospitals, medical providers, first responders, long-term care facilities. Those are the people that we need to continue to communicate with and assure that there is constant information going back and forth. Prior to any of the cases in Texas or even earlier, the department, along with its other partners, have been holding conference calls, exercises, tabletops to prepare so that our facilities can be as ready as possible. The key, again, is communication. As new information comes forward, we're trying to assure that our partners are getting that information. As we learn from what has transpired from the events throughout the United States, from the events in West Africa, we're taking that information, revising what we know, updating what we know, and attempting to make the most current recommendations are always available out to our community. We're also asking our healthcare providers. So communication is foremost and key. But we're also asking our healthcare providers to look forward with what they are doing, to take their plans that they have written long ago, look at what they have done for readiness, review their readiness plans, exercise those readiness plans, look to see where they can enhance and improve those plans so that we can again be ready. Our emergency departments, our medical offices and others are changing their protocols in many locations to add travel history so that if somebody comes into a healthcare facility with early symptoms that could be consistent, it's very important to also understand, do they have a travel history that would support anything that could be considered Ebola? We're making sure that our healthcare providers have access to up-to-date personal protective equipment, that they know where their own equipment is. They're looking at their own plans so that they have that ready and available. We continue to follow Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines. We have done that recently with some exercises. We have also done that recently with travelers who have returned who were considered low risk and had been monitored for a period of time and have subsequently been released. We had talked about that through our department. So I'm here in a city council, and you ask, what can we do? Well, first and foremost, again, I commend you asking to have people come and talk and tell you about what the situation and the status is with Ebola. 2, you are our frontline partners who are interfacing with our community, with your community. We ask that you make sure you have up-to-date information. To that end, the Department of Public Health maintains an Ebola page on our home web page, and if you need more information, we can get you that. We want to make sure that in the very unlikely event there were a suspect or case of Ebola in your community, that you're reaching out to those sources with information, which would be partnering through the county structure, through the Department of Public Health to get current information. That you would also, you're the voice to your community, that you're sharing information that comes through all these sources to help ease any anxiety, concerns, or more importantly, misinformation that can be in the community. Hence, as you can see, my topic, communication always is key. It's very important to continue to that. It's also very important that we have you as our partners to be that voice of calm, to be that voice of directing people when they want more information. So we are taking the necessary steps to assure that Riverside County is taking actions to be prepared. We continue to be vigilant. We continue to update the information of Ebola, any new recommendations that come out as quickly as possible. And we want to continue to be able to partner with you to communicate any information that needs to be updated in the community. With that, again, I'm going to conclude to say we have no cases of Ebola in this county. We have no suspect cases of Ebola in Riverside County, nor in the state of California. With that, I would open it up if there are any questions.
For you. It's not really, well, it is sort of. Can you give us that link to the Ebola page? Because that would be very helpful. I've had a couple of people in our community ask about that, and if we could just. So if you could-
Absolutely, and I
yeah.
don't want to get it wrong.
CDPH.
www.rivcoph.org.
Rivco- Sorry, so www.rivcoph
Okay. yeah.
for public health.org.
And then when I do that, there will be a link to an Ebola page.
Yes,
That's
we have,
obvious.
that is the main public health page within the county.
Okay.
And we have placed an Ebola page, which it comprises current information as well as recommendations for healthcare
Okay,
providers.
thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation.
Sure.
And CDPH follows the CDC guidelines. So as all hospitals in the country are encouraged to utilize the CDC guidelines for preparedness, that's what you're subscribing to as well.
Absolutely. So that is why we suggest that. We have links to the Center for Department of Public, for the
Center for Disease Control.
Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, sorry about that, and the California Department of Public Health.
Okay.
So yes, in fact, any of those links, we do link with those in order to also try to help people not have to go to each of those websites.
And I know the county often provides emergency preparedness supplies to hospitals in the area. I work at JFK, and we have a trailer with your name on it. In terms of the PPE equipment, is there also resources available in the county for Ebola PPE specific to this particular scenario? Because I think really locally, all the hospitals are ordering things on their own.
Right. There are some supplies. We do maintain cache of some supplies within the county to be ready. However, we also work with the hospitals to maintain their own supplies, and part of that reason is each hospital tends to have their own type of devices or personal
Right.
protective equipment that they're using. But we do maintain a cache and have readiness for surge.
And Sarah, maybe it'd be helpful if you explain how hospitals, health clinics are obligated to inform the Department of Public Health if there is a suspected case similar to a TB case and your requirements for monitoring.
Absolutely. So healthcare providers, hospitals, physicians' offices are all required by law to report communicable diseases as well as suspect communicable diseases. Something along the lines of Ebola would be required to be reported immediately, and that would be reported by phone directly to our disease control within the Department of Public Health. So part of what our disease control staff do is routinely work very closely with hospitals, with the infection control offices, with the infection control physicians, when there are things, as well as laboratories are required to report any communicable diseases or suspect diseases to the Department of Public Health. So over time and consistently, our disease control staff has maintained a relationship with each of the infection control practitioner within those local facilities to assure that there is a relationship, that we have that reporting.
And you basically case manage that patient's care until collectively the facility and the county believe it's safe to be placed back into community environment.
Oh, absolutely. So again, let's taking out to that, if we were to ever have a suspect case of Ebola to be reported in this county, the health officer has the legal authority to not only investigate, but also to have the contact tracing of any and all individuals we feel who could have potentially or possibly been exposed, and then to be able to take action to protect the public's health. And that's exactly what we would do.
That'll work in a short period of time.
Question, these health providers that are in Africa,
that are bringing Ebola back with them. Do we have word of any of those that will be coming back to California?
We have had word of individuals who have returned to California from West Africa as they have returned to the United States, and through Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as well as through the screenings at 5 airports on the East Coast. There is notification when travelers, any travelers who are returning from impacted counties return. They are also classified as a level of risk coming in, and the local health department is notified so that monitoring can occur. Yes.
Do we know of any plan on returning to California?
I am not aware of any one specific, and again, we would not necessarily have that information until we receive it through the federal channels.
Okay, given that they tell us.
Well, again, correct, but those flights and those airline flights with coming from West Africa or coming through countries that typically have individuals coming from those countries are most, I can't tell you all, but most are arriving in the 5 East Coast airports, and screening is occurring in those airports. I will also say that in the countries, those individuals who are leaving those countries, they are screened before they are able to leave the country. Those are outside the bounds of what public health locally does, but there is, again, this comes back to the communication, but individuals are screened prior to leaving.
Would that include the gentleman in Texas? Was he screened prior to going to Texas?
Those processes were put in place after that gentleman had arrived. But again, and I can't speak to this because I'm not part of that, but there were some screenings that were done at the time of his leaving the country. I don't have direct knowledge, but there have been some conflicting reports of what information, what happened, what was accurate, what was not. But a much more, and again, as we've learned more, all partners in this have gone on to revise what we're doing, and hence the implementation of the screening at those airports that have the highest proportion of individuals coming in from West Africa have now instituted a new or a refined screening, including some temperatures and other questionnaires as they come in.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is you mentioned the communication, because now as we're entering the flu season, the travel component is really critical because so many of the symptoms are very similar to flu-like symptoms. But if you have not been in an area that's exposed to that, you're not at risk. You may very well have the flu. And that's really where the education needs to happen constantly to make sure that that screening or that travel question is asked. Otherwise, you know, every urgent care every year in the valley is going to think that they've got these patients. And you know, we had a patient come in with a cell phone that was assembled in West Africa and was concerned and wanted to be screened because some iPhone element was so it's that heightened sense of calming down the population versus the panic and paranoia.
There's panic, there's anxiety, and it's understandable, especially with some of the activities that and people have heard. It's exactly that, and I can't emphasize enough, and I'm glad, because that was the other thought I had, is please remember, it is flu season coming up. The early signs are very much mimic, hence the efforts to assure that when individuals have flu symptoms, that the questions of travel history become very important to help differentiate. And I'm going to recommend everybody get their flu shot.
Done.
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 Terry, anything?
No. We had a presentation at Public Safety earlier this week, so.
Good.
Yes, good.
A question.
Yes.
I know that a lot of communication's been going on, you know, trying to get all this information. Have you, by any chance, had any of your department go to Nebraska or Texas to physically see what they're doing and be able to communicate as to the needs for preparation in case something would happen?
In this instance, no, we have not had anyone go there. However,
Do you think that's worthwhile?
I believe that the communication, the phone calls, through the various change, whether it's through our first responder EMS community who are looking there, through our hospitals, through with CDC, that those groups are clearly identifying what the strategies are. It's difficult to say. There was a lot of activity going on at Texas at that time, and whether that as much valuable information could have been garnered by having people on the ground, boots on the ground there, versus having the information coming through those, and in fact, having providers who were at Texas being on some of the calls that we have been with.
But don't you think hands-on is better than an email?
Well, in this instance, and it's not an email,
Well,
most of them
no,
have been,
But you got to communicate some way, whether it's email or whether it's telephone calls or whatever. But I'm thinking, this is very serious, and it can spread if it's not taken care of properly.
Well, it is very serious. However, the spread is very specific.
Yeah.
And in fact, having boots on the ground, we would not have had any personnel in the area where the care would have been provided because, again, access is extremely limited so that we don't have transmission of the illness. And again, at that point in time, by the time even having people come onto boots on the ground was primarily after we knew what had happened in Texas, and now we're revising what has occurred. I think really what needs to be looked at as well are the number of individuals who have come into specialized facilities, have been treated, and we have had no subsequent cases of other individuals coming into the United States or being treated other than in the instance in Texas.
Well,
Again, we've had people coming into Nebraska, but we have not had transmission as a result of cases being there.
Well, I think they're all trying to do the right thing to protect those coming into the United States and that, but you never know.
All right, yes, that's true. However, again, there is the science behind how the virus is transmitted. There is the science behind how to care for individuals with the illness. There is science behind how to do contact tracing to identify those who may have been risk. And I think, again, the concerns and the fears are what we want to talk about. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. But I also think we need to look at that Texas case and what has been done subsequently, and then look at the cases that have gone to other places in the United States, either directly from West Africa or those individuals who are here in the United States. There have been no subsequent cases.
Are other countries in the Western Hemisphere as conscientious as we are, say, going into Canada or into Mexico and then coming into the United States?
I can't answer that.
So there's a lot of things that could happen in that we need to do everything that we possibly can to stem the spread of this disease.
This disease is very, very rare in the United States. We're not seeing that. Again, while we need to be conscious of this, we need to be following our protocols and procedures. We need to be diligent in screening individuals who come into healthcare providers, and especially at this time of year, we're going to see influenza. And that we have in the United States, estimates as low as 5,000 and as high as 50,000 deaths a year from influenza alone. That's what we need to be concerned about, and we need to continue to remain vigilant on monitoring that and helping to prevent the spread as best we can. But that will be here this fall. Ebola, we want to, as soon as, if anyone has a suspicion of a case, we expect it to be reported, and we have preparedness, and these are the activities we are doing so that we can respond as quickly and as appropriately to mitigate or control any spread if, in the unlikely event, there were a case of Ebola in this county.
We'll leave it in your capable hands.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chamber of Commerce report. David?
Good evening. I'm David Archer. I'm President and CEO of the La Quinta Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to present the November update for the contract for services, and I'm going to try to work this. And, oh, there it is. Got it. All right. There are several components to the contract for services. The first component being the new business communication. The Chamber is reaching out to all the new businesses that garner a business license in the city of La Quinta. And we are reaching out to all of the businesses that fall into the retail and restaurant categories. For the reporting period, there were 14 new businesses, and we've reached out to all 14 of those businesses to talk to them about their experience coming to the city of La Quinta, to talk to them about their current business, how it's progressing, and how the Chamber and the city can help. Some of the comments that we're receiving are looking forward to opening up in La Quinta and expanding the presence in the community. And my business is outgrowing my space already, which is a good news to hear. Some of the folks that we're talking to are Angel View, Falto Cigars, and Fresh Juice Bar. The actions that we've taken from a chamber to be proactive is we've discussed additional locations for the folks, and we've also passed along contact information for individuals on city staff that could assist them if they have further questions.
David, I have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The current reporting period, is that quarterly or?
It's quarterly.
Quarterly, okay.
So it's July, August, and September.
Right, okay. And then of the 14 that you visited the new businesses, were you able to secure any memberships?
Yes.
How many?
Yeah. I don't have the exact count, but several of them. Hobby Lobby being one of those, Angel View, Falto Cigars.
Okay.
So a number of the folks that we're talking to. From an existing business communication perspective, wrong way. Oh, who's controlling this here? New, existing. From the existing business communication, what the Chamber is dedicated to doing is contacting all of the existing restaurants and retail businesses in the city of La Quinta in accordance, or that are being reported on the Play in La Quinta website. Right now, there's about 336 of those businesses, and we've reached out to 41 of those in the reporting period. We've talked to China, Soul of China, Encore Design, to name a few. Some of their concerns and comments that they have is business has been slow due to the closing of the Ralphs, and this was the best summer we've ever had. The actions taken by the Chamber of Commerce, we proposed marketing solutions for them and sat down with them and discussed what they're currently doing and trying to team them up with folks that can help them out in some of those areas. And also, again, we provide them contact information to city staff if they have questions on signage or things like that. The breakdown of the businesses, the largest portion of those are retail at about 67%, and the next would be the restaurants at 27%. And again, the Chamber is responsible to reaching out to half of the 336 in the fiscal year or for the contracts period. The next component of the contract for services is a semi-annual CEO forum. The Chamber has assembled a committee and is working diligently on pulling this together. We're also seeking the advice of SCORE, who has done similar programs in Orange County, and we anticipate an April or May timeframe for the CEO forum. From a commercial broker perspective, the Chamber, the beginning of 2014, had reached out to several local brokers and questioned them on the economy, who's looking to come to La Quinta, what kind of storefronts are they looking for in business locations. And I know the subcommittee for City Council has done the same thing. The Chamber is going to reach out in the next month or so to additional brokers in the community and continue that, continue to gather that information.
So I have a question, another
Sure.
question, David, if you
Okay.
don't mind. Are we doing overkill on this commercial broker in terms of the fact that Lee and I have met with both Scott Wilson and the people from Lee and Associates? And I don't want to get in the situation where we're inundating folks.
Right.
And that information, of course, has been made available to you, our feedback from that. So
Right. No, we don't.
perhaps I would recommend that we take a list of commercial brokers and maybe divide it in half or something, rather than plummeting them with,
Yeah, no, we don't want to double dip them.
no. And you would be double dipping if you
Right.
did that, okay. So work with Frank on that.
Okay, will do. From a shop local perspective, we've established a committee and we're meeting to establish a program similar to what we implemented a few years back, the Band of Locals program, where we engage the local businesses to offer to the community members a special discount or pricing if they are a local. And so we're working on that campaign, and we anticipate being implemented in June of 2015. Another component is the Gym Community Newspaper. If you remember, around July, we outsourced it to a third party to freshen up the look and to bring a cohesiveness to it. And we've done that. We've received favorable feedback on that. We'll continue to enhance that. But it is a major marketing piece for the Chamber of Commerce. As you know, it goes to all 23,000 residents, businesses, and chamber members. From a visitor center perspective, we are very excited about moving into City Hall. Thursday of this week is our planned move-in date, and revamping our visitor center. We plan on implementing a kiosk system, so there is not going to be a lot of paper out in the lobby or in the chamber area, but it'll be more online and touchscreen, and then they can print exactly what they want. So more to follow on that. And later on in the presentation, there's a picture of one of the kiosks that we're looking at doing that. And then lastly, from the annual financial review and audit perspective, we are finalizing our audit, and you guys will present the results of that to you once we receive those. That's all I have, except my last comment would be we've scheduled our monthly meetings with the city staff to continue our progress on the economic development and contract for services. With that, I'll take questions.
The kiosk, I'm sorry, what's the
Sure.
cost of that approximately?
We're examining the costs. If we bought it outright, it's between $5,000 and $8,000, but we're looking at a lease option on those.
Okay, and the chamber would be responsible for that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Anybody else have
Yes,
anything?
I do.
Go ahead, Terry.
I don't usually ask for rumors, but what's the rumor out there on Ralph's the store? Any bites, any takes,
No.
any suggestions? That's got to be really hard on
Yeah.
that strip mall part
There's lots
it.
of suggestions. People think Walmart was ready to come in. Cardina's was a rumor that was floated out there. There's no movement on it at this point that I'm aware of.
And there were a lot of folks that were concerned about the Walmart thing until you explained it to them, that
Right.
it was just a small grocery store.
Right.
And that's unfortunate that there was this kind of a stir-up of negativity towards that, because it would have, a grocery store is a grocery store, as far
Right.
as I'm concerned. Some of them are better than others, but
Right.
that's a shame.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the little meat market is really rolling in
Yeah.
the dough.
Well, and as I understand it, the gas station, they're building a little mini market behind there to kind of take some of the demand. And I know that the Ralph's over off of 50th and Jefferson, they've increased in their traffic as well.
Yeah, we know that. Thank you, David.
That's not a rumor, that's a fact.
That's a fact. When I was over there the other day, I couldn't find a place to park.
I know, it's crazy. It's good for those retails, but that doesn't help La
I
Quinta.
had to drive around till somebody pulled out. Thank you, that's all I had.
Anybody else? Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved as amended.
Moved in second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Number 3, Terry?
I just asked for it to have a separate vote,
Move
please.
approval for item number 3 on the consent calendar.
Moved in second, please vote. Motion passes 4-1.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. I see in here that public hearings at 4 p.m. Are we, what are we doing with that?
Can I get that?
They just,
Are we gonna?
we didn't want to do it at 5 o'clock, or
Okay. I just
7
thought
o'clock.
Maybe we were supposed to move it back.
You-
I'm sorry, I just
you-
was
no.
confused on that.
No, we can, is it mandatory that we?
No, it was noticed at 4 o'clock or as soon as possible thereafter.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but, okay. Just want to verify. Okay, we'll move on to our business session. We have 3 this evening. The first one is approve annual membership and daily use fees for the Wellness Edition at the Senior Center. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Christina Calderon has prepared the staff report and will present that to you this evening. Christina?
Thank you, Edie. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Today we are bringing you fees for your approval for the annual membership and daily use fees for the Fitness Center addition at the Senior Center. City Council had given staff direction early on that any new additional programs that we provide would need to have a funding source. So therefore, with the new fitness center, we're looking at about $50,000 annually to fund that new addition. With that, we are bringing fees, city resident fees and non-resident fees. For the annual membership, resident fees would be $50 annually, and for non-residents, it would be $75 annually. We'll also offer daily fees for those who choose not to purchase a membership, and we'll have resident fees at $5 daily and resident fees at $7.50 for non-resident fees at $7.50. These fees were taken to Community Services Commission, and they were passed unanimously to bring these recommended fees to you. The fitness center will have expanded hours. It'll be open 6 days a week, expanded hours in the morning and evenings, and we'll also have early morning hours on Saturdays. And that is my report. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions to staff?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. In your summary of those expenses and the fiscal impact, staffing, you only have $12,000, so you're not looking to hire any additional staff other than, looks like just some part-time, or?
That's correct. We're only looking at adding part-time staff for some hours. We already have part-time staff working in the evenings, several nights a week, so we would simply be adding early morning hours, Saturdays, and maybe an additional several nights a week. We are not planning on adding any full-time staff to facilitate the operation.
Okay, I just, any physical trainers or anything with all the exercise equipment? We won't need that?
Any programs or special services would be fee-based
Okay.
in addition to these, to come in and use the center.
Okay.
These are for coming in and using the fitness center portion of the building only. Similar to what you had when we opened the fitness center at the Boys and Girls Club, except that it's larger and we'll have a lot more equipment and a bigger space.
Okay, thank you.
And on that when we were at the Boys and Girls Club, Edie, if you can remind us the memberships that were there were 800 plus memberships sold in that little space?
Right. That facility was only 800 square feet, and there was such a popular demand. At the peak time, we had over 800. When we turned some of those memberships over to the Desert Recreation District, it was over 700.
So people will then have an option, obviously, now with this proposal that we'll be able to, obviously, the larger capacity. It sounds like the 1,000 is quite conservative.
We felt like that was a conservative number. We have a lot of seniors that will be interested in using that facility, just as we did at the center at the Boys and Girls Club. We had quite a large capacity of older adults using that facility during the day. We anticipate that some of the current users at the facility will buy these passes and work out, and that we'll have new members both for early morning and evening for the general public.
And the number of memberships the DRD facility has currently for La Quinta?
The last numbers that I looked at for their October report, they had 1,700 active members with a membership of 4,100. So they have a large number of people participating at that facility.
And it's a $50 dues, and there's over 4,000.
It's the same as we're recommending here.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Terry, anything?
No, I don't have any questions. I just simply would have a comment, and I think everybody knows how I feel about entering into what I consider private enterprise.
Yeah.
But there would be no reason for me not to vote for this, because it certainly, we should get a return on our investment, so.
Being close to the situation, have you had any negative responses from people regarding the fee?
not regarding the fee. The only thing that we've had a little bit of negativity about is having the center closed for a while.
Yeah.
Well,
Our senior-
I think we all
people wanna
agree
get
with
back
that,
in there and use the facilities, and we think many of them would be delighted with the new amenities, both the renovation of the existing site and the new amenities that will be available to them.
Yeah, cool.
I do have a question for Edie. Are we going to change the name of this structure from the senior center to something? Is it now called the La Quinta Health and Wellness Center, or?
We haven't made that determination. We've been working with our city manager on that, on the name of that facility and how we're going to approach that. We're going to continue to program that facility the same as we always have for seniors during the day,
Good. Okay.
along with added programs, because we'll be adding a much larger health and wellness component. And we will still continue to have activities in the evening and after hours for youth, which we do now and will continue. And this summer, we'd like to look at some things that promote younger kids, because we have fewer seniors in the building at that time. So we want to use our building up, and we want to use it for people that are available to be at the facility.
So do we be as bold, and I think I've thrown this out before in the construction phase, to ask our residents what the new name should be and what
Yes.
that might look like and how they might get engaged with all the services and availability?
We can certainly do that. I have bad memories of other communities doing that, and it turns into a 2-year process, and you
Well,
don't
it's
get to the
deadline.
name. But we could broaden the net and
It's like the first
Take that
snowfall
out.
with the tram, you know? It's
That's
very definitive.
tomorrow.
Yeah, it's very definitive.
So they got-
If it opens, you know.
They got 8
proposed.
hours.
Yeah. I think that might be fun.
Okay, Terry?
Yeah, I do have an additional question. Did any of this impact the DIF fee?
No.
And it won't?
No.
Interesting. All right, thank you.
I have one last question. Are we going to have some cool card or swipe or iPad, some phone, some kind of membership, zip, some kind of fun thing versus like a paper card, or what are we going to do for our
It'll be a
membership?
swipe card.
Swipe card.
It was a swipe card at the old facility, where you come in, you can swipe your card.
And just go.
And then it records the number of times you use the facility. These facilities are state-of-the-art, so not only will it record your use, but it will record your activity.
Excellent.
So it's going to be really, really terrific. And we hope to have you all over there and show you how it's going.
Yes. Health and wellness.
Well, it's good that we're covering our costs.
Right,
And that's the main thing. We don't want to get into a situation like we did with our landscaping, so.
We heard you loud and clear when we
Okay,
we
good.
talked about it earlier.
Okay, unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval of the annual membership and daily use fees for the Wellness Edition at the Senior Center.
Second.
Moved and second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. We'll move on to the next one. It's adopt a resolution designing speed limits for certain streets
Designating.
designated, okay. That's on
Started
here.
with a
Okay.
D.
Yeah, well, design them.
Tim?
Thank you, Honorable
Staff
Mayor.
report.
Ed Wimmer will be giving this report.
Okay. You're
Thank
on,
you.
Ed.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, honorable council members. This is a rather routine item, so I'll keep my staff report rather short. Periodically, state law requires that we revisit the speed limits in order for the police department to use radar for enforcement. We're at that time again. Back in November of 2007, 56 segments were designated with speed limits, and so here we are in November 2014, and they're about to expire. So staff looked at the 56 segments with a consultant traffic engineer from Willdan Engineering. Roughly 40 of them met the criteria where they could have an automatic speed limit extension done by letter. That has already been done, so that left 17 segments that had to be studied using engineering and traffic surveys. That's the radar surveys. They looked at accident data. There's a whole set of requirements coming from the vehicle code. That process went through on the remaining 17 segments, and staff is recommending that 12 of the segments remain the same as currently posted. There's 5 segments that staff is proposing changes to. Those are in your staff report. And then additionally, due to some resident public comment for one particular segment, the one from Avenida Bermudez from 52 to Calle Aroba, we specifically asked our consultant to study that one separately, did a special radar survey, looked at accident data, the whole thing, and it turns out that that one is roughly the same average speed as what was found back in 2011. So staff is not proposing that any speed limits be changed on that one. However, should the council wish to, you could direct staff to look into some striping options that were previously, roughly July of 2010, proposed to council. Those striping options could be used to potentially reduce the speed by narrowing the appearance of the roadway, and then perhaps a speed survey could be done after that.
Ed,
yes.
You were here a month ago when the 2 ladies came
Exactly.
up
Yes.
and complained about the speed.
Absolutely.
And that, and we're saying, you know, you don't know what you're talking about, we know better than you, and they live there, and they fight the battle?
No, that isn't what we're saying. We're saying that what the state law prescribes.
The mandates.
Correct. And if you
warrants,
don't
I
follow
guess.
the mandates, then you can't use, the police department is not allowed to use radar, or if they use radar and it gets challenged in court, it'll be thrown out, I guess is really what we're saying. They've done everything per the state law so that the tickets will stand up in court and can be enforced, and therefore, you know, people that are cited will pay the fines. I think that's what we're trying to say.
Well, I guess I have a problem, Sacramento telling us how we should operate our streets.
I think on that one too, there's no consideration for the volume of cars, because that was one of the things the residents brought up was, while the speed was one thing, just the sheer volume of cars have increased because of people taking alternate routes to avoid the roundabout. That doesn't take into consideration what becomes the
science used to come up with the speed limit is indeed that. It looks at the speed and not at the volume.
The volume of cars.
Correct. Actually, that is the end of my staff report. But with that, we have a number of folks. The city traffic engineer is also in the audience, and we're standing by to answer any other questions.
Okay. Questions of staff? Lee?
Thank you. In your list here, you talked Black Hawk Way, right there in front of the high school. So you're looking to increase speed in front of the high school. And the average speed is any given to teenage drivers versus non-teenage drivers in front of the high school?
Great question. The science that's used to complete the radar survey is not driver dependent. It's based on what's considered by the vehicle code as a reasonable driver. And so someone in a concealed position takes a radar gun for a certain period of time, and they shoot all of the cars that go down this segment. They plot the segment, and they compute what's called the 85th percentile. The idea being that 85% of the drivers are going lower than or at a certain speed, and that is meant to at least represent what a reasonable driver would be doing on that certain stretch of roadway. The idea being that there's always going to be 10 or 15% of the population that is going to go, you know, that is not reasonable and maybe driving a little bit faster than that.
Well, I'm a bit challenged to have 16 and 17-year-old drivers being reasonable drivers to set a speed on that street. I don't know that we should increase the speed due to 16 and 17-year-old kids driving on that street if they're going 35 or plus.
Well, are we, I know there's the 25 miles per hour when children are present signposted. Are we able in some school areas, it can be hours, it can be, 7 to 10 a.m. and 3 to 5 p.m. versus when children are present, because that could be, are they in the playground, are they across the street at the park versus along the sidewalk?
With the high school kids, you
Right.
never know. They're going to be all over over there.
Sure. And we have a section on Adams Street by the Adams Park that is designated that way. And I can tell you it's a challenge to enforce it.
Right.
Because when there's no children present, drivers just assume that the speed limit is still the posted speed limit. And it's, even though technically they should be slowing down to 25, I can just tell you, I live in the area, as does Councilmember Osborne, and it's, you drive that speed limit and you have people running right up your backside.
Right.
The thing about Blackhawk Way is that it is 25 miles per hour during the school drop-off and pickup, so that would still be adhered to. It still would be 25 miles per hour when children are present in the park. So really, the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit is going to be applicable when neither one of those is going on. And so what we're saying is that to be enforceable by radar, we've lowered it from, I believe the average speed was somewhere closer to 40. We've already taken a discount to lower it to 35. It's just that the average speed is too high to post it at 30 and make it enforceable with radar.
What time of day did they do that study?
It's midday is what I recall.
Okay, well, you mentioned striping on Bermudas. I mean, is there something we could do from a striping standpoint?
Yes, there is,
In front of the
actually.
high school?
And yeah, it could be used anywhere, really. It's called a road diet, is the traffic engineer's term for it. And what it is you narrow the travel lanes to as little as 10 feet, and still enough room to maneuver a vehicle. In fact, there's many streets, even Fred Waring has portions of it that it gets narrowed down to 10 and a half feet, and that's a pretty high-speed road. But by doing that, it psychologically changes the behavior of the drivers. And we saw it firsthand on Bermuda's earlier, because basically it was striped as two 12-foot lanes at the center lanes, and then it had, on one shoulder, it had a 20-foot wide lane that was up against the homes, and on the other side it was just a 5-foot golf cart lane. Switched it to make basically it uniform, two 12-foot lanes in each direction with an 8-foot parking lane on the house side and an 8-foot golf cart lane on the other side. And it slowed the vehicles down by on average 3 or 4 miles per hour. We were able to bring the speed down to 40 miles per hour. So if the council is interested in looking at doing that even further on Bermuda's, we did have some different options that we could bring back, and we could look at doing that. And then once you restripe the road, you have what is necessitated in order to change the geometry enough to go and resurvey the road and then possibly lower the speed limit.
Okay. On the same thing on Calle Tampico, increasing the speed to 45, we have discussed at one time with respect to the village, making greater access from Embassy Suites, thank you, senior moment, to Old Town and to the village and so forth. And so I'm a little surprised that we'd want to increase the speed there.
Well, it's not a matter of wanting to or
Okay,
not
I know.
wanting to.
Yeah.
It's what the survey came back at and what we can actually legally enforce. But certainly doing something to increase pedestrian, comfort in using that part of Calle Tampico could be combined with reduced lane widths or, parking and so forth to create a lower average speed there, and that would be perfectly legal and might be the thing to do there.
Okay, thank you.
Terry?
I thought you were going to put a roundabout on Tampico. At least I thought I heard that you wanted
I've been
to
warned
put
not
a
to bring up the R word.
We get another letter from Greg.
And I think maybe the speed on Bermudas might be inching up because there's less use because they're using Eisenhower. There is a whole lot more use of Eisenhower now than there used to be. So Bermuda's is kind of more open and people are zooming down there.
We were talking about that, the city traffic engineer and I, about that. We haven't actually measured the difference in volumes, but it hasn't been at least noticeable to us that there's a difference in since the roundabout that's gone in. But we certainly.
The discussion is that there was apparently some folks that felt that the speed had increased there.
I thought it was the opposite.
Yeah.
On Eisenhower.
From what you're saying, no. That more people, if you're talking about the women who
Yeah.
spoke here, it was the opposite, because what they said was, what her comment was that people weren't using Eisenhower
Correct.
because they didn't like the roundabout, and there was more traffic on Bermuda's.
Oh, well, I'm seeing it the other way because I'm seeing more and more people that are going through the roundabout too. And I think that might be something where we could look at a study in not too distant future as people get more used to that roundabout. I think that you might come up with different numbers.
One of the things in speaking with the Trilogy residents of late was on Avenue 60, just having a speed limit sign. And there isn't one, according to they're from one end to the next. So if that's something we can look at, not questioning that was a speed zone concern, but the fact that there's no posted speed limit sign on Avenue 60
That's interesting.
between Madison and Monroe.
I've never noticed that there wasn't.
I'm not confirming it, I'm relaying the information. Anybody in Trilogy? Fritz is here.
Yeah, I would like to shed some light on this.
Oh.
You got to wait a couple of weeks, and then I'll take it from Don. And Tim, as far as I'm concerned, I think that we need to look at Bermuda's and to handle that problem, and that whatever we can do to make it a safer roadway is mandatory. And that I personally will not support any increases in speed. And that I think that those speed signs that you have up there, 50 miles, 40 miles, 35 miles an hour, it's a guide. And people know that if they go 5 miles over it, that the police officer isn't going to pull them over and give them a ticket for 5 miles over. And every time we jack up the speed limit, bang, it just creates more problems. So as far as I'm concerned, and that's my personal opinion, is I'm just not in favor of increasing speed limits within our city. We're a rural, basically try and be a rural community in that, and we don't need high speeds going down our speed on our traffic lanes and that. I just, and as more people come and come into our city, the traffic is going to build up, and you don't need to be having raceways and that, but my own personal opinion. Anyways, we have a request to speak. Fritz, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, Fritz Buckley, 61375 Firewall Drive, Trilogy, in La Quinta. About a year ago, I traveled out into the road into Monroe Street and turned to the right and drove down south, and suddenly a 60-mile-per-hour traffic sign popped into my eyes. I really wonder who had this fantastic idea to put such a speed sign at that point where it is now. I traveled the rest of the afternoon. My wife was wondering where I was. I was chasing another 60-mile sign and find really nothing in the larger neighborhood. Then on the way back, I came up from south to north on Monroe Street, and guess what? You have to go 50 miles per hour to meet the speed limit. So 62 Avenue 60, Monroe Street, it's 60 south and 50 north. I think something is not right with that. So looking at the paperwork here, I really suggest a reduction from the record speed of 60 miles to 50 miles only. This would be, in my opinion, the appropriate measure. Before I leave this desk, I also would like to thank this council for the elimination of California biomass. We really breathe fresh air. You don't know what it means to live day by day next to such an enterprise that contaminated the air. So thank you very much. We enjoy the fresh air.
Thanks, Fritz. And then,
That's question. I mean, Monroe Street, the east side of Monroe Street, is that county?
Yes.
in certain areas, yeah.
So would the
part.
county be able to post their own speed limit, or would they become, consider it with La
Between
Quinta?
60 and 62, it's entirely within the city, both sides of the street.
So I appreciate what you're doing here,
No,
bringing it
no,
from
it
60
isn't.
down to 50.
Do I got that
No, it
wrong?
isn't, because there's a huge farm on the east side of Monroe, because my mother lives at Trilogy, and that's county. Sorry, but it is.
Okay.
Avenue 58?
Yeah, where BK Home is, that's La Quinta.
Correct.
Okay, but, and then when you go just a little bit further south,
61
once you
to
hit the
62.
farm, the
Yeah,
Broccoli,
South
Harris,
of the
that's
KB home
county,
sites,
yeah.
okay.
It is.
Well, you
and
know,
You can tell by the way, the road where they did that.
Jackson.
Okay.
We had the same situation on Jefferson where Indio was, because Indio at one time posted 55 where we were posting 50. So on one side of the street, the west side of the street, they were posting 50 and 55 on the east side of the street. But that's changed now, but that's when they first put it in.
Well, can I propose that if staff would look at striping issues for Bermudez and Tampico and Blackhawk, and if we could hold this item and give us some guidelines or some ideas from a striping standpoint, and perhaps a budget?
The only suggestion I would make is that if the council is comfortable with the other items, that Bermudez right now is not scheduled to change the speed limit as stated. It's going to remain at 40 miles per hour.
Okay.
The other segments that we were bringing forward, we needed to basically have updated so that we would have an enforceable speed limit by the end of the month. Otherwise, radar enforcement is not going to be allowable on those. So if
So just hold off on Tampico and Blackhawk.
okay,
And approve everything
we
else.
wouldn't. I think the only thing about that is that we would not be able to. Technically, we would be out of compliance with having a speed survey that would be radar enforceable if we were to do
We
that.
don't have some time frame here to do the study? We have to do it right now.
We are, yes, they were adopted originally November of 2007, and so we are in the last month that these speed limits are applicable.
Okay.
All right.
But that doesn't keep us from, excuse me, that doesn't keep us from still doing some investigation on striping.
Absolutely
Just go
not.
ahead and do the speed limit.
And for further clarification, as Tim mentioned, in order to change the speed limit subsequently, the striping would have to be approved by council, the striping would have to be installed, and then a new radar and engineering and traffic speed survey would have to be done, and then that would have to be brought back to council. So there's actually a number of steps that would have to be taken before the speed limit could be something other than what is proposed this evening.
Okay. If I could ask, if Lieutenant could come up. And forgive me, guys, I mean, I've driven at Blackhawk for 15 years, dropping kids off and on that high school.
Sure.
Do you see, I mean, the accidents or whatnot from those kids on that? I mean, does this concern you?
Well, yes, it does. I mean, we're definitely concerned anytime we have a high mixture in high density of kids and vehicle traffic, and so, you know, obviously we want the slowest, most prudent speed allowable by law. So, and then we enforce that very stringently because we do take our kids and the safety of our citizens very seriously. So, yeah, I mean, but I would say this, and I know Tim and maybe Ed can say something from their perspective. From a law enforcement standpoint, we know what the state law maximum allowables are for like 2-lane undivided, multi-lane roadways, which are 65 and 55. Without a survey, you know, theoretically, if it's unsurveyed, we couldn't stop you if you're doing 55 miles an hour through there without a survey, because it would revert back to this 2-lane undivided. We could always go with prima facie, what's safe given the circumstance. Again, very difficult on its face to support in court without any kind of survey on the road, because all the burden is on us.
So actually, I think what I'm hearing you say is that you're as concerned as we are about raising speeds.
Yes.
But we all have to live within the law.
We do.
There you go. That's it.
But we can continue to look at striping and other issues to bring that speed down.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. I remember when we were here, you know, before looking at raising some of these,
Yeah.
we didn't want to do that on some of these
Yeah.
streets.
That's right.
And we're put in a box that we have to according to the state law, which was just
I think some
very
of us
troubling.
just did a protest vote, but it had to pass.
Probably so, yeah.
So
I'm about
two
to
of
do the
us get to
same.
vote no, and the rest have to
Because
vote
I
yes.
certainly don't want to vote on increasing these speed limits as stated, but with the caveat that staff will be looking at striping on these to bring them back down in some manner or form. I would greatly appreciate that.
For Bermudas and Blackhawk are the
Yes,
streets we're
please,
concerned about.
Bermudas and Tampico and Blackhawk.
Tampico.
Tampico too, because again, we're like, Councilman, we've got to make that a walkable community, and we don't want traffic going too fast.
Well, that's good, Lee, but it's not going to stop us from raising the speed limit.
Unfortunately, today, yeah, we're stuck under the state law, but we'll look at making some changes hopefully in the near future. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, unless there's any other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I move adoption of resolution number 2014-062. 062, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Quinta, California, designating speed limits for certain local streets.
Second.
Moved in second, please vote. Motion passes 4-2 and 1 abstention. All right. We'll move on to the third item, and that is an ordinance to amend section 3-30.050 of the municipal code relating to prevailing wage requirements to allow La Quinta to be eligible for state funds for public works projects.
Mr. Mayor, honorable council members, it's no surprise to you that this is before you. SB Senate Bill number 7 was enacted in 2013. It prohibited charter cities from receiving or using any state funds for any construction project after January 1, 2015, if the city had a charter or municipal code provision that authorized a contractor to not comply with prevailing wage. And the city's municipal code does have a sentence in it that specifically says the city shall impose no prevailing wage requirement. So in order to qualify for state funds starting January 1st, that sentence will have to be retracted from the municipal code. So that's what this is. This is the first reading of that amendment to the code. A group of charter cities did file a lawsuit to invalidate SB 7. That was not successful at the trial court level. It's currently before, or will soon be before, the Court of Appeals, so that's pending. But in the meantime, we do have to enact this so that coming January 1st, we will be able to qualify for state funds. Certainly, if the charter city
Absolutely.
the Court of Appeals will then go back and repeal this so that we can continue to not pay prevailing wages when we use local funds for our projects. We looked at what authorizing with no contest that it would cost us, Public Works estimates, $200,000 to $300,000 annually, in addition to what we're paying now to pay prevailing wages. But the loss in state funding would be in the millions, because it would affect the state gas tax, street improvement money, the surface transportation program funds, the state transportation improvement program funds, and maybe even some community development block grant funds. So we're recommending that for now, pending the outcome of the litigation, that we do pass this ordinance. This will be first reading tonight, and in 2 weeks we'll do the second reading. It'll be effective within 30 days after that, so we'll hit the January 1st mark right on the button. So that concludes.
Was that planned?
Good timing there.
Yeah, it was planned.
Yeah.
Down to the day.
Yeah.
So that concludes the report. If you have any questions, Bill and I are here to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Questions of staff?
Just a comment.
Bill, regarding the challenge that's in appeals, is that in appeals right now, or whether they're going to take it up or not?
It is on its way up. There was something called a writ of supersedious, where they basically sought an immediate stay of the trial court's order, but that was denied without comment. And so the process will be for the regular appeal with the full regular briefing to go forward. And that's where the case is now.
So when it goes through appeals, we'll hear about that and whether it was overturned or not?
That's correct. Our office and staff will certainly be giving you updates as they occur. The typical process for the Court of Appeal, the State Court of Appeal, depends on the particular court. This is in San Diego County. Depending on the nature of the appeal, they can be decided quickly or can take as long as 2 or 3 years to actually get finally decided. We're not in Sacramento, which means it's probably a good thing, which means it might go a little bit faster, but a final decision and opinion on this probably won't be for several months, if not at least a year away.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question. A charter city is in the Constitution, state of California's Constitution.
That's correct. The Constitution basically provides that any powers that are not preempted or basically spoken to by state law can be reserved to charter cities, and the city council or the legislative body of those charter cities have basically the full power of the state legislature with respect to those items that are within the city's control. That's the general provision and concept
I'm just
behind
wondering why the state doesn't just go ahead and try to eliminate charter cities entirely. Just, I mean, what's the point?
You know, I know that's a rhetorical question, but the
let's go for a rhetorical answer.
The rhetorical answer is, I do believe the charter city provisions were adopted way back when. In order for that to change, there would probably need to be a constitutional convention. I don't think the legislature can do it just by an amendment to the Constitution.
Well, the governor certainly could, because he can do whatever he wants. I really, somehow or other, I can buy into the speed limit necessity to get that passed, but I'm having a really difficult time with this one. I've had since day one. I mean, we became a charter city for the pretense, perhaps, wasn't what we thought, but we became a charter city, so we would have local control, and it's just poof, going away, and I don't understand at all how the governor and or the state legislature can continue to do away with those items that we would like to deal with on a personal level. And so I'm just and I'd like to also know what our prevailing wage It's by collective bargaining agreements for each individual craft within each locality. Now, when I had my business, construction business, and had to go to prevailing wage, it was nothing more than the union wage, period. Not each locality, which is why the construction industry was up in arms and having to pay union wages, because you're supposed to do it San Francisco's going to have a higher wage than you need here in Riverside County because cost of living is higher. So let's go out and do a study on the cost of living here locally and pay those wages.
Well, that's common sense, and you're dealing with the state. Not common sense.
Well, I just think that there's a lot of things here that need to be looked at. I mean, it's never ending. So I guess everybody knows how I'm going to vote.
Just a point of clarification, it is done by county. The Department of Industrial Relations on their website actually has a listing of the different, from labor all the way up to sheet metal worker, every classification, and then they go by county and tell you what that wage is, plus benefits, plus et cetera.
Okay, so
a lot of times it works out to be, like you said, very close to the union wage anyway. But it is controlled by the State Department of Industrial Relations. The actual wage is set that way.
Well, I know years ago they did not have that on a web page or any place where you could go. In fact, I know years ago they didn't have web pages.
Yeah, they came out in books, basically, that you had to go down to the county or whatever and find.
All right, thank you, Tim.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I'll move approval of ordinance number, it says 52. 521. And should I just say move to take up ordinance 521 by title and number only and waive further reading? We can't lose the funding that's still out there.
Moved and second, please vote. Motion passes 4-1. All right, we'll move on to.
Well, we've got another.
I'm sorry, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just
Susan?
read the title into the record. Ordinance 521, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of La Quinta, California, amending Section 3.30.050 of the Municipal Code pertaining to prevailing wage requirements.
What I said was, I now would like to move to introduce at first reading ordinance number 521, amending section 3.30.050 of the municipal code.
Moved and second, please vote. Motion passes 4-1. All right. We have no study session this evening. We'll move on to reports and informational items. Linda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two meetings that took place last week was the CVAC Conservation Commission, and while there wasn't heavy approvals of anything, there was an update on the fact that we did have some bighorn sheep monitoring that did take place here in our cove and mountain area, and had additional discussion over needing data and alternate options besides the infamous fence. On CVAG Energy Environmental, we received an update from Y-Green and the HERO program on efforts for activities throughout the community. Nothing significant on that.
Nothing here in La Quinta?
Well, they held a session probably end of October in here, and had about 15 attendees. About 11 applications were completed. So they are now looking to reach out to assist some of the flood victims, see if there's anything they can do to help.
Great.
And I don't meet with CVB until December. There was a travel show going on, and so we postponed the meeting until December. That's my report.
Okay. Christie?
Animal Campus was very interesting this time. We had a gentleman who came forward to give a PowerPoint presentation on the benefits of our animal campus being a no-kill campus. And that no-kill has become sort of a, a statement with, or a phrase with 120 different definitions, because one group will say, well, it's 90%, and this particular person said that he didn't want any percentage at all, and he was really referring to cats more than dogs. So he thought that the shelter should take them in and not kill any of them. So so along with that conversation that came out of his PowerPoint, I'm sorry, we were looking at, there was some stats on how many, on euthanasia. And there were people who were there that wanted to speak about the euthanasia, and it comes under the category of healthy euthanasia, sick injured euthanasia, and untreatable euthanasia. And there were several folks there who wanted the county to break that down. Healthy euthanasia, our shelter has been at 0% for quite a while. But they wanted more definition for sick injured and more definition for untreatable. And the meeting, I will have to say, got a little bit out of hand because there were some very vocal folks who were very critical of the county for not breaking euthanasia down into more categories. I mean, so what is untreatable? They wanted a definition of that. And, at any rate, when they finished with that, I had my little say, and that was simply that we are there not to micromanage and not to tell the county how to run their operation. We are there to listen, make recommendations, and so forth. And there were even folks in the audience who had accused the county of not reporting correctly. And so I just said that that's not our role. And then at that point, the person who was running the meeting stopped all the chatter, and we moved on to other things. So, but the county is very amenable, and they said they'll break it down, the euthanasia. So in the shelter, when the animals come in, there's a certain time frame, and they go through behavior analysis to know whether or to determine whether they're adoptable or not. And so we are going to have a speaker, I think, at our next meeting on defining behavior analysis and how they go through it and what the process is. So at any rate, it was it was a zesty meeting. Usually the animal campus meetings are kind of low-key. Not this time. Okay, and I met with the Chamber of Commerce at our bi-monthly meeting, and we did Les did his usual wonderful job of updating the Chamber Board on all the things that were going on in La Quinta. And that was pretty much it. We talked about, I talked a little bit about signage, the new signage that we have at City Hall, which, by the way, Frank, is fabulous. Really nice. Whoever's, it's really, really good. And I'm sure there's probably more to come, but just even having the canopy out there that says City Hall, you know where you are. It's nice.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
While you brought it up?
Yeah.
The other day, probably a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, I got out of the car and I turned around and my eyes caught the sign up there.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought is, okay, no, I'm getting old.
Yeah, me too.
So
Has it
how
been up
long
there
has this
before?
been up here? Has this been up here for a couple of years
Yes,
and I didn't notice it before? Or am I going to go embarrass myself now and ask when that sign went up there? But so I asked Frank, and it had only been up there 4 days, and I had not been here in those 4 days, so.
5 years.
I was wondering the same thing. You weren't alone with that one.
Okay.
Me too, the first time I saw it, and I thought, you know, if I ask Frank this, he's gonna mess with me, so I'm just not gonna ask, I'll just let it go. Somebody will bring it up sooner or later. Okay, I have CVEP tomorrow, so that's it.
Okay.
Are you gonna talk about our meeting with respect to the?
Sure, be glad to.
Okay.
Terry?
Public safety, it was just kind of the normal stuff that goes on at public safety, but we did have a presentation from the county, much longer there than we had this evening on the Ebola issue. CVAG transportation is a follow-up to, or just, it precedes the RCTC, and it's a continuation of moving those projects forward, the next step, the next approval process. So transportation through the Riverside, downtown Riverside, the 91 is going to be just awful for probably 3 years, going through Corona. Within, I think it was about 18 months, they will have 28 bridges under construction, all at the same time. They've already got about 8 of them under construction, and now so they're doing the bridges first, and then they'll come along and add the streets to the bridges, I guess. That beats me. The League of California Cities delegate, which I no longer am, and I wanted to make it clear that this is not a city appointed position anyway, it's a division appointed position. So that just may disappear off of the agenda, depending on what the division, in fact, they already did appoint someone, and I can't think of the gentleman's name, so I do apologize on that. But that's all I have, thank you.
Okay. Lee?
I don't have any meetings prior to this, but we did have a meeting in the city of Indio yesterday regarding the East Valley Coalition. And present there was the city of Indio, the city of Coachella, the city of La Quinta, and Riverside County. It was a bit discouraging on my part because it was all over the board and more on, well, some concern that their needs weren't being met in Coachella, and that the communications from the previous enterprise zone weren't being appreciated by the CVAP. And so at this point next, Mayor Mike Wilson said he was going to try to schedule another meeting with just the electeds, but understanding that come January, the mayor's going to be loopy. So where's Loopy going to go with this? We don't know. But, you know, there's a lot of concern, obviously, for sales tax. Everybody wants sales tax. But if you bring sales tax in the East Valley Coalition, there's going to be a lot of, you know, wait a second, that one's mine, or that one, you know, and the car dealership, who, you know. So it was just discouraging on my part. I don't know what you thought, Christie, but it was just all over the board. And, you know, John, Supervisor Benoit was there, and sat quietly listening to everything, but at some point, when he had to leave, he basically said, look, you guys make up your mind, let me know what you want to do. And that was it from the supervisor. And I can appreciate why he said that, because again, it's all over the board. And I don't see a lot of future with this if they can't get their eyes into the bigger picture of the overall economy and not just their own sales tax.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
not Share the Wealth Coalition.
Right. I mean, we got to bring jobs, and I think they're more concerned about their own present situation, not the long term. But
Well, it was a venting session.
Yeah, it was. It was.
And not well organized.
No.
There was no moderator, shall we say, narrator.
Right.
And Elaine Holmes from Indio did make a recommendation that at the next meeting there be a narrator, moderator, whatever, someone to run the meeting and keep it on track and have an agenda and so forth. I don't see it going forward at all. It was, CVEP was there, and
Right.
and they're open. CVEP's, they had a packet, and one of the opening statements was, we feel like you're in competition with us, which I didn't think was it just didn't, it set the wrong tone for the meeting, and it turned out to be, well, this is just my opinion, it's not about economic development. The whole coalition thing is not about economic development. It's more about sales tax and who's going to get what. And how does CVEP play into that? There was no, there weren't any conclusions.
Isn't sales tax just an individual city's issue?
Right.
Yes.
So,
well, it was, how are we, well, let's just look at it this way. We have different needs than Indio and Coachella.
absolutely, yeah.
So, and then they have had the enterprise zone. They relied upon that a lot, they being Coachella and Indio, and we haven't. And the statement basically was, well, we worked really well together when we had the enterprise zone. You know, there wasn't this competitiveness for this, you know, if a business comes in, you know, how we're going to do that. But that was a pretty shallow statement because I could see
because
that.
the businesses went to the enterprise zone, didn't go to the city.
But it's gone now.
Yeah.
Right, with that being gone. I
So
mean,
that creates a whole different picture.
Yeah,
of
but what
how
I'm
they're
saying
gonna
is the
compete.
cities didn't have to work together because the enterprise zone
Right.
was doing the work.
But now that's different.
Yeah.
But
They
the
don't
cities
have that
were,
anymore.
you know, the executive board of the enterprise zone consisted of the cities in Riverside County. So they did work together in respect, but they also did a lot more advertising to bring businesses into the zone, whatever city you want to be in, but into the zone in itself. And they had incentives to offer at that point as well. Those incentives are gone. So if a large manufacturer wants to come out to this East Valley area, whether it be Coachella, Indio, Riverside County, I don't know what incentives can be offered. You know, again, taking sales tax off the board. CVEP did offer the aspect of creating a advisory board, a regional advisory board, as they put it, for the East Valley, to the executive board of CVEP. But then someone said, well, if you do that for the East Valley, then is Palm Springs going to want one for the West Valley? Is, you know.
And where is
we could
Palm Desert? Are we Middle Valley?
And Palm Desert, yeah, they weren't there.
Yeah, well, Palm Desert likes to feel like they can go either way. you
So,
know?
so as much as what we're saying is all over the board, that's how the meeting went. It
Yeah.
was just all over the board, so it was rather frustrating. But we'll see where this thing goes in the future, but I don't see it happening.
No. And then when it comes to money, so CVEP
yeah.
went ahead and took over the office of the enterprise zone. They have a budget of $234,000 a year to operate that.
Holy smokes.
If you include the iHub.
If,
If
yeah.
the iHub wasn't included, it was like 180 or something.
164,000.
160,000. So then, I'm always looking at, what's the take here for La Quinta? I mean, what are you asking for? And so I asked the question, well, how are you going to support this? Well, it's just going to come out of the regular funding, is what Tom said, but the caveat was, however, if you want the iHub in the East Valley, it's going to cost you. How much? We don't know. It was just, so everything was just everywhere.
And keep in mind, in respect to the iHub in Palm Springs, a
That's a good point.
substantial amount of funding is coming from Palm Springs itself.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
Measure
their special
J.
tax.
Right, exactly,
Measure
exactly.
J.
With Measure J, Palm Springs said, we will make a $1 million contribution at $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
I don't see any city on the East End giving any sort of that.
We don't
And
have-
Coachella was right up front saying, we can't afford a dime, so good luck.
Yeah.
So,
But we still want stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, and then you and I were talking with some folks from Coachella in the parking lot, and on what's considered the East Valley, they redefined that a little bit.
Right.
Indian Wells East, but not Indian Wells. Anyway, we don't have the budgets. We don't have the budget that Palm Springs and Rancho Mirage perhaps and Palm Desert have, and so I find it a little bit unsettling that their ask is the same all the way across the board. So, anyway, it was interesting,
It's interesting.
non-conclusive. So we'll wait. Stay tuned.
That's all we have at this time.
Just, I find it interestingly, you mentioned one of the focuses is on jobs.
Right.
And it's very interesting, just recently I saw where, other than Indian Wells, we are the lowest as far as unemployment is concerned in the whole valley and that's great.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I
phenomenal.
think it's great for us.
Okay.
I had no meetings. I would like to make a comment. Our executive director of CVAG, if you saw him on TV and Dancing with the Stars and that. And I give him a lot of credit for going up there and doing that.
I didn't see it. Did you see it? I didn't see it.
But it was
Yeah,
interesting.
I did too.
Okay, we'll move on to department reports. City manager?
None.
City attorney?
Nothing to report.
City clerk?
Sue, if I could, Sue, the blue light ceremony with Riverside County Sheriff's Department, what night is that?
December 1st.
December 1st?
Here. 6 o'clock.
Right, it's here. I just wanted to confirm what date that was, that Monday night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Department heads? Nobody? Okay, we'll move on to our public hearing, or excuse me, mayor and council members item. Anybody have anything? Seeing none, we'll move on to our public hearings. We have 2 this evening. I think it's 2. 3, excuse me, 3. The first one is adopt a resolution approving the use of fiscal year 2015-2016 Community Development Block Grant Funds and authorize the city manager to submit applications to Riverside County Economic Development Agency. Staff report?
Your Honor, Council, I'm going to have our housing coordinator, Carla Trippett, provide the staff report for you this evening.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. The public hearing this evening is an annual process in soliciting applicants interested in applying for the Community Development Block Grant Fund that are allocated to the city on an annual basis. The Community Development Block Grant Fund provides funds to support decent, affordable housing, services provided to low and moderate income persons, and economic opportunity by creating and retaining jobs. Nonprofit organizations, local governments, and public housing authorities are able to apply for grant funds. Eligible projects include housing, capital improvements, economic development projects, and public services. It has been estimated that approximately $145,000 will be available. Of the $145,000, 14% is available for public services, and the remainder is available for qualifying capital improvement projects. The city received 3 applications, 2 public service applications and 1 capital improvement application. The 2 public service applications that were submitted by Boys and Girls Club of the Coachella Valley and Coachella Valley Rescue Mission. The Boys and Girls Club of the Coachella Valley is requesting $30,000 to fund their membership fee waiver reduction program at their La Quinta location, located off of Avenue 50 and Park Avenue. The fee waiver reduction program will allow for 118 students to utilize their after-school and summer program. Coachella Valley Rescue Mission is requesting $50,000 to fund emergency shelter services to individuals and families throughout the Coachella Valley. Services include food, overnight shelter, and clothing. Capital improvement application, I apologize. The capital improvement application was submitted by the City of La Quinta Public Works Department. They are requesting $124,700 for ADA improvements at various city-owned parks throughout the city. Staff has made a recommendation that Community Development Block Grant funds be awarded to the Boys and Girls Club of the Coachella Valley in the amount of $20,300 and the City of La Quinta Public Works Department in the amount of $124,700. Alternates for your consideration include allocating funds to a single applicant or in an alternate combination of applicants. This concludes staff report on this matter. Les and I are available for any additional questions.
Okay. Thank you. Staff report? Questions of staff?
I do if I can.
Sure. Lee?
Thank you. This may be for more Tim, less. In regards to the ADA improvements that we're doing, I know it's been on the capital budget for quite a while and looking to go into the future on the capital budget for quite a while. At what point do you think we'll be finished with all these ADA improvements?
Oh, never.
Never.
I was afraid that was what he was going to say.
Dreamer?
Yeah.
We'll get them done, and they'll have changed the law, and we'll have to go back and change them again.
Is that it, Tim?
Well, I guess I don't look at it quite like that, but I mean, we're making good progress on them, is what I can tell you. I think we've been doing that the last at least 3 or 4 years.
Right.
We've been trying to knock out some of the parks. So this is, one of the main uses that we think CDBG is helpful for, because it's so particular as to what the funds can be used for on the capital side, that it seems to make a lot of sense, because we're really focusing, I believe, with this money on Fritz Burns Park, that hasn't had a lot of ADA upgrades since it was originally put in. So that's what the focus is. Edie could probably tell you better where we are, on all of our facilities in terms of bringing them into ADA compliance, because I know we're working on the museum, we're doing the senior/wellness center. We've made a big improvement on a lot of facilities, but I think we still have a ways to go.
Okay, a ways to go.
I'd be guessing if I told you what percentage I thought we were done. But I mean, that when we did the analysis, I mean, there was millions of dollars worth of ADA improvements to be done on facilities, fire stations, this building, all of the city buildings. But we're really being judicious in going through and doing the ones that make the most sense and get the most bang for the buck. We're not doing every little thing that was identified in those studies, because we just don't think it's practical to make all the restrooms in one facility ADA accessible when they don't all have to be, for example. So we're making progress, but we do have more to do.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Absent comments, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Christie? Terry? Linda? No? Terry?
It's a combination of a comment and a question. I was under the impression that when we approved last year's budget, that we line itemed the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission.
That's correct.
So it'll be in this year's budget then?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
And it is in this year's budget.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you very much. At this time, this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing to anybody that wishes to comment on this. Questions?
Overall?
Jim?
Well.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll make myself
Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Duquette. I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Coachella Valley Foundation. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for your past support of our Boys and Girls Club with CDBG funds. This is a program that has, in my opinion, really worked well. And through the program, really what we're able to do is reach out to youngsters and really their families who cannot afford a Boys and Girls Club membership, and we provide one for them. And it's an annual membership. So whenever they sign up in the course of the year, it's for a full year. And probably the best thing about this program and what I've seen is it allows our staff to really reach into the community and find kids that probably really need our programs and services the most. And we bring them in and we get them involved with the Boys and Girls Club. So it really helps on many levels. As was indicated, we're looking at about 118 children that this grant would affect. So very positive, reaches out to a large number of children. And anyway, thank you again for your past support. We appreciate it. And I'm really here to answer any questions any of you may have.
Good. Anybody have any questions to Jim?
Okay.
Your guys in La
Thank you.
Quinta do a great job.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Thanks, Jim.
Good. All right. Did you want to say something? Come on.
Well, I did. I thought I'd give everyone an opportunity to see me when I'm not crying. Have you all figured out where your suburb is? Well, if you recall my referring to it in the past few months, because if you haven't, I'm going to ask you to resign. I don't want to repeat myself about earlier, but that's a very serious situation over there, and a malfeasance because he did nearly murder me. I just want to say, again, thank you for all your hard work, and that was a beautiful and strong statement that you made earlier with regard to La Quinta being rural, because it does have that feeling. With, despite the 111 and the suburb feel there, it is still attractive. It's a beautiful city. So congratulations to all of you and all of your earnest hard work as far as low and moderate income housing and whatnot. That Coral Mountain is beautiful, and each and everything I see that's come up on the screen and whatnot. So congratulations, and congratulations to you, and keep up the good work. So that's it's just a beautiful statement you made, because it's true. So stick with it. And I know Miss Evans will do the same.
Well, we think so, but we're prejudiced.
Well, of course you are. You have that weird word, Jim. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and the matters before the council.
Okay.
Ken, just
Absolutely.
from a comment standpoint, I asked Mr. Ducat, how many kids go to the La Quinta Clubhouse? And it's almost 1,200 kids.
Yeah.
1,200 kids at that clubhouse. And I know when, during the summer, we had the readathon and we had the event at the senior center. And I was talking to Cy how things are going over the summer, and he said when he got in that morning at, 8 o'clock, there was already 80 kids in line to go there. And so with, we help almost 40% of those kids with this program. So it's just a phenomenal program for these kids, and how many really depend on it. So I appreciate what staff is proposing.
Okay, you ready for? I move adoption of resolution number 2014-63, a resolution of the City Council of the City of La Quinta, California, adopting proposals and authorizing the city manager to submit applications for community development block grant funds for fiscal year 2015-2016.
Second.
Moved and second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to item number 2, and that's adopt a resolution to approve a general plan amendment, introduce an ordinance to adopt a zone change from major community facilities to village commercial, and confirm a determination of the exemption pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act, Section 15061B, and 3, review of exemptions, general rule. Staff report, please, Les.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. The subject property is located on Avenue Bermudez, immediately south of our post office. You all may recall that it was the former location of our police substation. I think it had a previous life even for our chamber for a while, and originally was a residence in our community. With the relocation of the police substation here to City Hall, we put that property up for sale, if you will, or we were offered and sold that property here a few months ago, and it's been occupied now by, I believe it's an escrow company, and they're functioning there just fine right now. But we do have one outstanding item. That is what's before you this evening. The property was established as major community facilities, which was representative of the police substation. However, with that use changing now to its current office use, it's being brought forward for your consideration to be changed to village commercial. And so the representation is both for the general plan map to be amended accordingly, and also our official zoning map of the city to be amended as well. The Planning Commission considered this matter in late August, and they've made a unanimous recommendation of approval to you. And with that, I'm not sure where all these slides came from here. What's going on here? With that, I'll include my brief staff report and certainly be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Les.
Thank you.
Questions of Les?
I have one.
Okay. Terry?
Does this facility have a gate access to that parking in the back, or
Yes.
is that exclusive?
It has a gate access. We retain, obviously, we've retained ownership of the public parking lot, but there is the ability for access to that parking lot.
Did you say the city retained?
Yes, we still have ownership of that parking lot in the back.
Okay, but they can go in the, so did they meet parking requirements? Would they have any, and did they meet them, and did we charge a parking fee?
It does not meet the parking requirements. It never has, except when it was a single-family home. So the use ever since then, which ended many, many years ago, it has never met the full requirements.
Okay.
However, that public parking lot was established many years ago.
Right.
And it's not uncommon. There are many other village properties that do not comply with all of, the minimum requirements for parking. And the owner was aware of that in taking ownership of the property. We discussed the fact that any expansions of that use or increase in intensity, for example, if they changed the use to a restaurant, that the issue of parking would have to be addressed at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Seeing none? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing to any comments. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. The matters before the council.
Okay. Let's see, I move adoption of resolution number, right? Or the ordinance, resolution first? Resolution number 2014-064. Do you want me to read the rest of it? A resolution of the city, okay, there you go. I don't need to read the rest of it.
Okay, I'll second it.
Moved and second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to item
No, we've got a couple more to go.
Move to take up ordinance.
Trying to get it done.
I move taking up ordinance number 522 by title and number only and waive further reading.
Second.
Moved and second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, I'll read the ordinance into the record. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Quinta, California, approving zone change 2014-146, rezoning property located at 51351 Avenida Bermudez, case zone change 2014-146, applicant City of La Quinta.
And with that, then I'll move to approve ordinance, first reading ordinance number 522, adopting zone changes 2014-146.
Second.
Moved and second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, well, now we'll move on to item number 3, and that's adopt a resolution to increase vehicle impound cost recovery fee. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Chris?
Ted Shove, business analyst, will be providing this report.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. In May 2013, the city updated its city user and regulatory fees to align fees charged with actual costs of services. During that time, ClearSource Financial Consulting reviewed and analyzed the existing fees and made recommendations to update the existing services charged, the fees charged. ClearSource was again retained recently to perform this analysis on a vehicle impound cost recovery fee update. The vehicle cost impound recovery fee, or VICR, is a fee that's collected when law enforcement are required to impound vehicles on public and private property that may be required in the interest of public safety. The VICR was initially added as a fee charged in 1995. It was updated a few times, most notably in 2009. To put into context, a fee is a charge imposed for a service. As such, state law provides for up to 100% cost recovery for the service provided. So essentially, a municipality cannot charge in a form of a fee more than what the fee costs. On the slide above, you'll see the methodology utilized to derive the cost of service. Essentially, it's the the time in for the law enforcement personnel times the fully burdened hourly rate. Over the last 5 years, the city has experienced sizable increases to contractual costs. Primarily, these have been noted in labor cost increases. Currently, the city is recouping approximately 64% of the costs incurred with this fee in particular. This slide demonstrates the cost recovery that cost recovery lags behind actual costs of service. Since the city may recoup up to 100% of the costs incurred for the service provided, many communities periodically review these types of fees to make sure they're in alignment with the actual cost of service. This chart shows the communities in the Coachella Valley where their fees are comparatively with, on the dark blue chart or bar graph, La Quinta's current fee of $124, and the dark blue bar on the far right, which is the proposed fee of $195. Should the council approve the VICR fee increase from $124 to $195, staff estimates an additional $11,000 in annual cost recovery. That would break down to approximately $5,000 to $5,500 for the remainder of the fiscal year. Oops. For the purposes of reporting, the public hearing was noticed in the Desert Sun on November 7th and the 12th. To date, no comments or questions were presented to staff. And that concludes the presentation. If there's any questions, I'm available, as well as Terry Madsen from Clear Source Financial and Lieutenant Dave Walton.
Okay. Thank you. Questions of staff?
Yes, sir.
Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in 2009, our cost study showed us $124.
That is correct.
And so here in 2014, our cost study showing it's $195. So they're saying in that 5-year period, costs went up 60%. That's a substantial increase in only 5 years. I'm struggling with that sizable increase in such a relatively short period of time. Please.
If I may defer to Terry Madsen.
Do I push a button? Hi, good evening. My name's Terry Madsen. I'm here from Clear Source Financial Consulting, and we help prepare the cost of service study. So I can answer the question that you just asked about the change in cost of service calculated in 2009 versus 2014. The answer is your hourly rate for police services has increased, but the increase from 124 to 195 is not simply due to that increase. In 2009, the study only accounted for the patrol officers' time linked to the police impound process, so the time of patrol officers out on the scene, making the area secure and safe, waiting for the tow companies, and preparing the police reports. This study looks at a more comprehensive picture and says, yes, the patrol officer has the most significant component of time involved in impounding and releasing a vehicle, but you also have a sergeant who has to review the patrol officer's work, discuss with the vehicle owner the process of releasing the vehicle. You have accountants and technicians and things like that that are dealing with the state, and so it accounted for slightly over 2 hours of total time by police personnel at the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. So it takes the process from start to finish instead of just the 1 hour patrol officer.
Okay, yeah, I can see in your schedule here, all right, just the deputy in this study is what, $139. So I can certainly understand 124 to 139.
There you go. That's what.
Appreciate that. So is all those other costs that were not included in the original number?
There you go.
Okay.
So quick follow-up question then, when we look at the comparison with other cities, do the other cities include all of those components, or are they going back to just the initial patrol cost?
Well, here's the interesting thing. So when we went out to compare with all the other cities, many of those cities also contract with the Riverside County Sheriffs. So it would be logical to assume they have the exact same cost as the city of La Quinta and the exact same time. And the lieutenant can confirm that. That's just my assumption. But for instance, the city of Coachella did go out for this exact same type of study and came out with the same number of $195, but chose to adopt something less. So I believe the cost of service for several of those agencies is $195, but what they said when I called them was, we haven't examined the fee in 5 to 7 years, or we haven't updated it. So the fee they impose is not necessarily the cost of service.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my next, because there should be 5 cities, there should be all the
Right.
same.
Yeah.
But, okay, and Coachella intentionally decided not to charge to cover their costs.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of like we left our building fees at a lower rate for a long time. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
So we were, just as a report only last meeting from the county, a potential adoption of an ordinance, actually came through CVAC, on the drunk driver DUI proposed impound fee of $695 some odd dollars that I guess Rancho Moroso or Indian Wells, one of those cities, adopted. And my understanding that, which we have not adopted, that was a recommendation to help deter DUI. This would be separate from that, correct? Because this is a non-DUI related impound fee?
This is our standard fee, and that one would be in addition to the standard fee.
So if that comes down through CVAG as a Coachella Valley-wide adoption, we would be looking at potentially $195 plus the exorbitant amount, which I don't think will deter people to say, I think I'll have another drink. Oh, no, I'll have to pay $695. But
expensive drink.
It is a very expensive drink. But I support recovering 100% of our costs and having the flexibility of waiving it depending on the circumstance with the owner that's affected. Because that's a key point in here, is making sure that we're not penalizing the victim in certain circumstances. Thank you.
If there's no other questions in that, I'll open up the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. The matters before the council.
Okay, with that, Mr. Mayor, I will move adoption of resolution 2014-065, a resolution of the City Council of the City of La Quinta, California, increasing the vehicle impound cost recovery fee.
Second.
Been moved and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimous. Okay, that concludes the city council meeting for the 18th of November. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Before we vote, I'd just like the record to show that I appreciated all of the new staff reporters this evening, and everybody did a wonderful job on that little chore.
Well-trained, Frank?
We're working on it.
Okay. All right, there's been a motion, a second. Please vote. We are adjourned.
Okay, and with
We
that,
have the housing.
and with that, I will call the Housing Authority special meeting on Tuesday, November 18th to order. We will note for the record that all authority members are present, and we'll have a verbal announcement at this time.
Board members of the La Quinta Housing Authority are entitled to receive a $50 stipend as set by Section 34274 of the Health and Safety Code, not to exceed 4 meetings per month, to be paid to members in attendance at every convened Housing Authority meeting.
Thank you, and with that, I'd like the record to show that I do not receive that stipend and have not taken it for a little over 2 years, I believe.
Okay.
Closed session, there aren't any agendized. Public comments on matters not on the agenda. I don't have any requests to speak forms from anybody on anything. So with that, we'll move on to confirmation of agenda.
No changes.
No changes?
No.
Announcements, presentations, written communications, there are none. Consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Business session, none. Study session, none. Oh, wait a minute. Did I miss? Oh, okay. Yeah. Reports and informational item, none, nothing through to public hearing, so I would look for adjournment.
Move adjournment.
We have a motion and a second, please vote. That motion carries, thank you. Okay.